What's good, y'all? BeatGenerals.com back with a brand new tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be doing a Lil Uzi Vert tutorial. This is basically just a little bonus tutorial. Our little series is over, but this really fits his style, and it's different from the other tutorial. It uses more of a little bit of kind of harsher leads than the other one does, which is a little bit more open. So that's what this tutorial is about. I already made the beat. I figured why not share it with you guys as a bonus. Let's jump into the next section and get started on this beat. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is this little pluck sounds, little pluck melody. I'm using the Good Book Volume 1 from studiosounds.com, and there's a sound in here called the PL pinprick, like a little kind of plucked synth type sound, but I just felt like that tone of it really kind of fit like a Lil Uzi style. So as soon as I heard it, that's kind of the first thing that really came to mind. So what we need to do to it is we want to go to the miscellaneous section, and we want to hit the arpeggio direction up and down. We want to set our timing to 2 steps, keep the gate all the way up, and put the range up. Now this is going to basically just program a simple arpeggiator. So when basically holding a note, it's just going to go up an octave and play another note with it as well. And you can change the timing and everything right here as well. And you can do this with any VST. So find whatever sound you like with, start with that, and you can just kind of program your stuff in. So to start it off with, we're going to start with a D sharp, then we're going to go up to a G, and we're actually going to do this on 1 octave lower, just because we do have the arpeggio going up. So if we want to start a little bit lower, it's going to give us a little bit better range, versus if we start up here, it's going to go higher to the point where I feel like it's not going to sound as good. It's going to be too high and a little bit harsh. So I'm going to bring it down to this, then I'm going to add a F in here and a D sharp. Now there was really no kind of method or anything that I used in here to come up with this melody. It was basically just kind of playing with my scale and seeing kind of what fit. Right here, obviously, it's going to tell you I'm using a D sharp major scale. Without kind of diving deeper into this, because we are going to cover, and if you have our Music Theory 101 course, you know about relative majors and relative minor chords. This is something, the first tutorial right after our beat reviews, we're going to be talking about key changes, doing bridges, and just changing a key in general, going from, you know, a major to a minor and just changing stuff up. So we'll get more depth in that, but all you need to know right now is every minor key has a relative major, and then major keys have relative minors, and you can kind of jump back and forth from these. So we'll be talking about that, like I said, in a future tutorial, but basically right now for this tutorial, I'm using a D sharp major and just kind of playing the scale and finding notes that sound good to me. So just kind of trial and error, pick notes from your scale and just kind of go from there. And then I'm going to go from the G down to the D sharp again, pick up the F, then come down to the D sharp, and just kind of pay attention to the timing a little bit. It's a little bit different. So here's what it sounds like right now. Okay, and if I stretch this note out, basically this is what it sounds like. Which doesn't sound bad, but I kind of noticed if I added this note in here and stretched it out and then kind of did something along the lines of this, it gives us a slightly different tone. And later on, when I added my chords, this melody with stretching this out worked better than just having it any other way, really. So just keep in mind when you're doing arpeggios and stuff, sometimes the timing or just the way notes are sitting on the grid is going to make a difference in the way it actually sounds, because even though you have the actual sound and the note that you're choosing, it's also going to be playing other notes in a certain rhythm. So just by changing the placement of the notes, you can kind of get some more interesting rhythms and different kind of grooves and feels to your actual arp. So just keep that in mind. But basically I'm just go ahead and grab this again, transfer it over, and then at the very last one I'm just going to go ahead and shorten this one up. Okay, so here's what it sounds like now. So even this little note right here coming through sounds different, and I ended up changing this once I laid my chords in here. So it's kind of one of those things where once you have your chords down, you can make any little changes you need, just kind of make it sound better. But yeah, so this is what I started off with. Then I'm going to go ahead and assign a free mixer track. Mine is already on 2. So the first thing we're going to start off with is the parametric EQ. We want this to be kind of a thin sound because this sound does have kind of a harsh presence. So we don't want it to be doing too much just because it's going to be harder to add stuff to it later and thicken it up. If it's, aggressive, it's not going to blend as well with other sounds. So we want to just kind of offset that slightly with just some slight EQs and kind of making it a little bit more background. So we're going to add a delay, add a little bit of movement to this Can Never Hurt, pan it, turn the volume down. I'll probably do maybe like 2 steps, 3 steps. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a reverb to here just to make it bigger sounding. We're going to turn the size up, turn the decay time up to probably like right around 3 seconds. Keep it like this. Okay, and then I'm going to add one more EQ and just cut a little bit of that bottom end. Technically, if you wanted to, you could just transfer this EQ to the bottom and just kind of adjust it right there, but this is a little bit quicker to me at least. So we're going to just cut a little bit of that bottom end. That reverb is kind of going through that whole sound, and it's giving it a little bit of frequencies of the bottom end that I don't really need for it. So okay, so this is the start to the track. I cut this around 100. I know my 808s and everything are going to be 80, 60 to 80 hertz around there, maybe up to 100 if I play some higher notes. And then the 100 range, I'm going to have my kick and everything like that as far as mixing goes. So cutting it around 100 and what is that, 138, 140 around there gives me enough space for my low end, but still gives it a good presence. So that's basically what I started the track with. Let's jump to the next section, continue. So the next thing I'm going to add is the PL Bellish Pluck. So this is from OVO, The Dynasty Volume 2 from StudioSounds.com. Great pack to have. And I'm going to add these little Bellish Plucks. Just a nice kind of open type sound, but it can add a nice melodic touch to it. And I'm just adding some chords to it just to give the track some melody. Lil Uzi does kind of like to sing on hooks and different things like that. So just adding a melodic touch with some chords and stuff would be just a nice addition to the track. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and just lay down these 4 chords pretty much, and that will be it. And these chords are super simple. So basically, it's all pretty much for the most part going to revolve around this chord right here, the C minor chord. So I'm going to have a C, a D sharp, and a G. For the next one, I'm going to keep 2 top notes. I'm going to take the G to a G sharp, basically right here, and just transpose it down 1 octave to just to make it a little bit more dramatic sound. It can make this little key switch, or not even key switch, but this little chord switch a little bit more prominent and make it stand out a little bit more. This would be a little bit too close to each other. Then I'm going to go back to that C minor chord again. And then for this little last chord, all I'm doing is I'm taking the G sharp now from the top, and I'm just transposing it down 1 octave to a lower G. So same chord again, just arranged a little bit differently. We talked about that in a little Yachty tutorial a little bit. But anyway, so here's what it sounds like now. This is kind of the build up to the intro. So here's what it sounds like. So I just really love the difference between that kind of happy sounding lead. It's still all in key, but these little minor chords just add a nice kind of more eerie type sound to it. Doesn't make it kind of that happy little Yachty lane. It still has a little bit of edge to it, which I think sounds great. And before we move on to the next element, I just want to talk about this element real quick. I forgot to cover the effects on it. So I have an effects channel 3 and I have a delay on here. The delay is set to 8 steps. ping pong, volume turned down slightly in the panning to either the left or the right, doesn't matter, just so it'll bounce from left to right. So pick a left or right is fine. And the delay, basically this is obviously a very short sound, so it's going to come in here on the one basically, and it's going to disappear after that point. But I like the way it sounds, so I wanted to slightly linger a little bit more, so just adding a slight little delay sound is going to basically just take the sound and repeat it a couple times, just because it is so quick anyway. It'll just make it have a little bit more of a presence in here. And the next thing I added was a parametric EQ and just cut a little bit of that low end. It's a nice full kind of pluck type sound, but we don't really need that bottom end. We're going to have kicks, 808s, and everything in that kind of register, so no need to really keep those frequencies. So here's what it sounds like right now. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let it play, and I'm going to add a strum to this, and just kind of make it a little bit more interesting sounding, a little bit more natural sounding, and just kind of pick what works. Okay, and then I also just evened out the little velocity just slightly. And if you ever want to just adjust basically the velocity of one sound, you can just select that note, and then when you come down here, you can basically just control that one note. And I just wanted to even them out a little bit, just later in the mix it'll help, and just keep the track a little bit more consistent sounding. But here's what it sounds like. I still kind of feel like that strum is a little bit too strong, so I could just go ahead and undo it, but I feel like I did so many things since then that I don't want to press undo 100 times. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it with this lead and then adjust the strum, just because I felt like once I played it together it was still a little bit too harsh, a little bit too noticeable. Okay, so something like that, very slight, will work. So let's jump to the next section and add the next element. So the next sound that I used is called the lead Jewels. This is from the Urban R&B and Pop Volume 1 from studiosounds.com. And it's just a nice little, just a slight cool little lead. It has kind of a darker, kind of almost minorish type sound to it. So I like I said, I like the back and forth between that kind of happy sound with that lead and then the chords being a little bit darker. So this was a nice kind of medium in between that. And basically I'm just going to add one simple note with this. It's going to basically just be on the 1, shift and D if it's not lining up to the grid correctly. It's going to basically be a note like this. But it might be slightly shorter. Let's see what that sounds like. So it just adds a nice back and forth between the more serious sound of the chords and then the more happy tone of the actual lead. So I just thought it sounded good in there. So let's jump to the next section. I'm going to show you guys just a really simple way to do like a little automation, which can be used for intros. It sounds really good in my opinion. So we talked about pitch automation and stuff a little bit in the little Yachty tutorial, but this is a different way to use it. I like sometimes just taking, if I have like a cool lead or something that's kind of catchy, just to isolate that lead by itself in the beginning, and then I'll put a pitch automation onto it. And you can get this cool little effect of it kind of rising, going back down, and then just out of nowhere it hits with the chord, which would be right here, and all of a sudden everything is perfectly in key and sounds great together, and I just like that kind of sound to it. So the way to do that is you want to just create an automation clip with your pitch, and basically what you want to do is you want to right click basically right in the middle of wherever it's gonna break over here. So this would be the midpoint. Okay, so at the 3, I'm gonna make sure I'm in cell, and I'm gonna right click and create basically a little control little bubble right there, and I'm gonna take this all the way down. Then from this point, obviously at this little section it's at 100%, so the little stock setting that you want it to get back to is 50. 50 is the stock setting where everything will just play how it did when we were programming it. So when we get over here, we want to make sure we set this to 50. Okay, and now if you take a listen to it, I think it just sounds really cool. It has like a really weird type sound, and out of nowhere it just hits in key with the chords and just sounds good to me. So it's just a really quick way, to do a nice little intro. And then from this point over here, we're going to add our little transition effects, which will be pattern 4 probably. And then over here, we'll drop into the hook. So let's jump in the next section. We'll do our transition effects and then do the hook.